Hello my friends, my name is Celadin. I'm 5 times world champion in instinctive knife throwing, 4 times record holder for Czech Book of Records, member of International Knife Throwing Hall of Fame. I'm on YouTube more than 18 years and throw knives more than 10 years. So today I want to share with you 15 knife throwing tips, and I will also tell you one story how I almost lost my eye. So let's get started. So my first tip and also mistake number 1 is not watching on knife throwing tutorials, especially when you are a beginner. If you are starting just throwing knives, you have to watch knife throwing tutorials. Otherwise, you will have no idea what you are doing and you will not enjoy it at all. So my first tip, definitely check out some knife throwing tutorial. For example, you can see mine. I will put the link right here. And this will give you idea what to do and what not to do. You have to start from the easiest techniques and go to the more difficult ones, and you're gonna enjoy it way more. Cheap throwing knives. This is my second advice. From the beginning we all had cheap throwing knives. This is totally normal. But if you want to progress and get your skills on another level, after some time you definitely need to have some professional custom throwing knives. Otherwise your skill will go nowhere. Alright? So when you will be throwing like several months, 1 year, definitely consider save some money and get the professional knives, and you will see how you will improve so fast. Alright? So this is my second tip. My third tip is not mixing too many knives and too many techniques, especially if you are just starting. Because if you're gonna do that, you're not gonna be consistent with anything. So from the beginning, you have to decide, for example, if you want to practice with the symmetrical knives and no spin technique only, if you're gonna dedicate it several months, 1 year, you're gonna be so consistent and your skills will go way higher. Definitely believe me with that. So I highly recommend one type of knife and one technique from the beginning. Alright? Another huge mistake that I see a lot of beginners are doing, even the advanced throwers, are rushing on the longer distances. This is a huge mistake, guys. From the beginning you have to stay from very close distances and progress very slowly with the step back drills. Otherwise you're not gonna be consistent, like I said before, because everybody wants to stick the longer distances. Our ego push us further, but you have to stand very close from the target and keep repeating and doing very small step backs, because longer distances take years. You can stick it from longer, but you're not gonna be consistent at all. Alright? So definitely stay close and don't rush on a knife throwing or on the longer distances in general. Another good tip is don't throw in the wrong area. Because for example, if you know it from my videos, I love to throw in the forest. But in the forest you can actually easily hurt yourself. If you are focused just like on the throwing, you can trip and fall on the ground. You can easily lose your knives in the bushes. So keep that in mind. If you are in the different area that or just not on your background, keep focus when your knives are landing. Otherwise you can lose them so easily. If you are advanced thrower, you know about this, because knife can easily slip under the leaves, under the grass, and without metal detector you're not gonna find it at all. Alright? So if you're gonna be in the forest, in the different area, keep in mind that you can lose the knives, hurt yourself. So always pay attention what you are doing and when your knives are landing. Another big mistake that I see a lot of beginners are doing is throwing on the live trees and picking up the bad targets in general. So guys, if you are not skilled thrower, you maybe don't know this, but we are using soft targets mainly, like a pine, poplar, cottonwood, because knives will stick way better. And if you're gonna be throwing into the tough wood, you're gonna have really hard time. The knives are not sticking almost at all, and the rebounces are also way scarier. You will see by the end of this video. So like I said, from the beginning and even longer, if you are a skilled thrower, you need to have a soft target and don't throw on the live trees at all, right? Overthinking. This is big problem that even advanced throwers are doing. So if you are just starting, there are a lot of techniques that you can see on the internet, and from the beginning it's totally overwhelming. You want to learn everything, but like I said before, focus on the simple things, just one technique, one type of a knife, and just enjoy, you know. Don't think like, oh, this guy is throwing better, this guy is throwing worse, or it doesn't matter. Focus on you, have a fun, and keep it as a hobby, not like a profession. All right, just have a fun. My another tip is don't throw the sharp knives, because if you're gonna be throwing sharp knives, not that you can easily destroy the locking mechanism if you're gonna be throwing them, because especially these folding knives are not for throwing. If you're gonna have like a fixed blade, like this Glock 78, this one you can throw, but from the beginning I definitely don't recommend it, because if you still don't have figured out the right techniques, what you can do with knife, you can easily hurt yourself, slice your hand open, especially if you're gonna be using the military house pin. You're gonna forget one time, you're gonna close your hand, and imagine if I would release the knife like this, my whole hand would be totally sliced. So definitely, if you are a thrower, experienced thrower, you know that we are using dull knives, because the main important is just the penetration. So you need to have only the sharp tip, and that's it. So what I notice in a knife throwing community, that even great throwers are quitting too soon. So for the beginners, if you are just starting and your knives keep falling on the ground, you can't stick it, you can't do like the trick shot that you wanted. But I'm telling you, stay focused, don't rush anywhere, and take this as a marathon, not a sprint, because otherwise you will get burned out and you won't enjoy this sport at all. So like I said, don't rush anywhere, just take your time and don't quit. My best advice is to have another person that you're gonna be throwing with. It's way more fun, you can do challenges together. So if you can, find somebody else for throwing and you're gonna enjoy it so much. If you want to take knife throwing really serious and want to enjoy it, have a lot of fun, I highly recommend to start practicing accuracy and consistency. This is the highest rewarding, because if you will go on the competition, you realize that you need to be consistent and super accurate. And also, if you're gonna be throwing against your friend, you want to like compete against each other, you can make a little competition. It will also decide who is the more accurate and consistent. So this is big advice, guys. Working on that, you can put on the target, for example, like a playing card, throw on the empty can. And for the consistency, I recommend throw as much with one technique as possible and keep repeating all the time. For example, 60 throws on 3 meters, another 60 throws on 4 meters. It's really up to you what will be your routine, but definitely stick with consistency and accuracy. And this is also very important, guys, to have the right shoes. Because for example, if you're gonna be throwing in only like sandals, and knife will fall on your feet, you can easily break a toe, there could be some blood, whatever. So definitely invest into better shoes, especially if you're gonna be throwing outside in the forest, stuff like that. And some people are throwing even barefooted, so I highly don't recommend that, because freak accident can happen with knife throwing and you don't even know it. So keep that in mind and have some proper shoes. And on this you have to be also very careful, guys, especially if you're gonna be throwing a lot of knives only on one target. They're gonna hit each other, and that can create the burrs on the knife, the small pieces of the steel that are like a cracked on the knife. And if you're gonna forget about it and after throw with the nose pin, it can easily slice your finger open. Some piece of steel can be left in the finger. You can have a blood there. It's very uncomfortable, and right after, if you want to be throwing, you could have problems. So how to avoid it? I highly recommend to have 3 separate targets. In this way you're always gonna be throwing only one knife at each target. Alright, so keep that in mind. If you want to have your fingers clean, don't forget about it. Alright, throwing too much, this is also big mistake, guys. So for example, baseball throwers can throw per session only like 100 throws. So if you're gonna compare it to knife throwing, sometimes you can get stuck for hours and you're gonna be throwing hundreds of throws. So you can easily create stress on your shoulders, elbows, and you can even end up on the surgery table. So keep that in mind. Pace yourself. Like I said at the beginning, this is not the sprint, this is marathon. So if you're gonna be consistent, accurate, definitely don't rush anywhere. Pace yourself and don't throw too long. I would say optimal from the beginning, it's about 30 minutes per day, 1 hour, but don't overdo it. Doing dangerous trick shot, I would say this is not a mistake, but if you are just a beginner and you want to impress the skilled throwers that you stick a can or did some difficult trick shot, I would say this is a huge mistake, because like I mentioned before, the beginners have to be, or in all throwers in general, consistent and super accurate. Most of these trick shots that you are see on the internet are not consistent or accurate at all. It's more about like, oh, I was trying this 1 hour and finally it stick it. It's also a lot of editing, stuff like that, and a lot of these trick shots could be super dangerous, like my kiss of a death when I'm throwing more knives in the air and stick them. So I would say the difficult trick shots have their time. You can do it, you can break the routine, have a good time, but if you are a beginner, focus on consistency, accuracy. I know I repeat it all the time, but this is very important. And since we're also talking about injuries today, the best way how to avoid them is warm up before throwing and stretching right after. I see a lot of throwers are not doing that at all. I understand, because this is mainly like a hobby and not like an official sport, but if you realize it, we are throwing so much, and like I said before, it can create a lot of stress on the shoulders, elbows, even on your knees. So get your body ready, and right after also chill out. You can also use some like cold showers, cold bath, and it's gonna definitely avoid those injuries. Knife throwing in general is super safe, but now we got into the point where I almost lost my eye. So what you have to be the most careful are the ricochets, guys. 100%, these are the most scariest thing that can happen to you while you'll be throwing. So what happened to me, it was about 2016, and I was already done with my session. I was making some video, and by this end of the session I was already so tired, like I was not focused on throwing so much. I just wanted to finish the video, but I was throwing on very bad target. That was also one of my points before. I was actually throwing on dead cherry, and that target was super tough. So I had to put more force than I usually do, and I was throwing from super close distance because I was doing like a no reload technique, and one knife actually rebounds and ricocheted, and it hit me exactly right under, I think left eye or right eye, I'm not sure, but right under the eye. And if I would be like a step closer, or I mean maybe step back, the knife could pierce into my eye or like this into my mouth, you know. So I was very lucky in that situation that it wasn't worse, because it really hurt after. And you can only imagine if it would be just 1 inch a little bit higher, it could just smack my eye and I could have very serious troubles, guys. So keep in mind, be very careful on the ricochets. So what do you think about it, guys? Let me know in the comment section below which of these tips was most helpful for you. But for today, that's it. So thank you buddy for watching. Share, like, comment, subscribe, and see you next time.